Jim, are there any implications to the state's ability to terminate parental rights if Proposition 3 passes and goes into law?
I think there are. This time I want to give you an example based upon an actual Court of Appeals decision. And the case is called In Re Rippy, R-I-P-P-Y. And if anybody wants to read it, they can go to 330 Michigan Appeals, page 350. And this was decided back in 2019. And here are kind of a summary of the facts in this case. It's a sad case. A mother gave birth to a child. This child was in critical condition and had symptoms of fetal alcohol syndrome. The child was born at 32 weeks, and it was clear that he would require long-term treatment because of the alcohol syndrome, fetal alcohol syndrome. He had a lot of unusual characteristics that were indicative of fetal alcohol syndrome. He had a thin upper lip, a clenched jaw. He had a lower set of ears, webbed feet, no testes. He had what appeared to be an intravesicular hemorrhage, hydrocephalus, which is a buildup of fluid on the brain, cystic encephalomania. He probably had a small heart murmur. He had minimal brain activity. And it was alleged and probably true that the reason he had this is because the mother persisted in abusing alcohol during the pregnancy and so forth. And the mother really didn't seem to want to care for the baby and wanted to let her mother take care of it and so forth. And so they brought an action to terminate the parental rights. Well, the Court of Appeals said yes, the mother her parental rights can be terminated. Here's my question. If Proposition 3 passes, could the court still have terminated the parental rights because of the way the mother provided the lack of prenatal care? Remember that the fundamental right involves decisions and the effectuation of decisions with regard to prenatal care. And remember that a compelling state interest does not include the health of the fetus.
Correct.
Okay.
And
now, would you read subpart 3 of the proposition, at least the first sentence of that?
So the state shall not penalize, prosecute, or otherwise take adverse action against an individual based on their actual, potential, perceived, or alleged pregnancy outcomes, including but not limited to miscarriage, stillbirth, or abortion.
So, this says that the state cannot take adverse action against an individual because of their pregnancy outcome.
Correct.
In this case that I just read to you, that was a very sad pregnancy outcome.
And it was an outcome.
It definitely was an outcome, and it was an outcome because of the mother's failure to provide appropriate prenatal care to the child. Now, by terminating the mother's parental rights, would that be an adverse action against the mother?
Yes.
Well, yes, I surely would be. And here it was the court, which is part of the state, that took the action to deprive the mother of her parental rights because of the outcome of her pregnancy. Now, under Proposition 3, if you had the same set of facts again today, could the court take that action, that adverse action against the mother?
Well, no, because they don't have a compelling state interest. It's not listed in Section 4.
And she has the right to determine her prenatal care, doesn't she?
To make and effectuate decisions on her prenatal care, yeah.
Now, to me, and I don't mean to take a strong position of this, but here you have the state, or we have a proposition that the state cannot take an adverse action against the mother And here you have a child who is going to require extensive medical treatment, maybe thousands, maybe $1 million for this child's care. And who's going to probably pay for it? Probably the state. Why? I guess what I'm asking is, why don't the people of Michigan, if they're going to end up paying for a child's care like this, why don't they have a compelling state interest with regard to the mother's prenatal care? Why can't the state at least terminate that parent's parental rights? And I think they would not be able to rely at all upon the prenatal care for terminating rights. They might be able to say, hey, well, after the child was born.
Yeah, but there's postpartum care.
Well, and so they probably couldn't for the immediate care following. But after the child was 6 months old or so, probably they could rely on abuse at that point.
So if Proposition 3 passes, this will affect the health and welfare of our children.
And particularly the unborn.
This amendment doesn't just affect abortion, it affects how our children can be treated in the womb. I encourage you to read the full language of this amendment. I've supplied it here on our website, and know what you're voting for this November 8th.